President and him are talking about during his first term the strategy of how to defeat ISIS. And the Lieutenant General Caine says it can be done a lot faster if you reduce some of the restrictions on us. And then after he says this, according to President Trump's retelling, he takes a MAGA hat and puts it on. Mm-hmm. Now, we know the president's propensity for embellishment during his storytelling, but we also know that if this were to have happened, as the president has described on several occasions, it would or could be a serious ethics violation for a uniformed military officer, because they are specifically forbidden from donning any sort of political apparel. Mm-hmm. And so he was asked point blank very early in the hearing if that story was accurate, and he said it wasn't.
Welcome to Reporter's Notebook, where we talk to the Washington Examiner's top journalists about the stories breaking on their beats. I'm Jim Antle, and I'm joined today by defense reporter Mike Brest. And Mike, we have had an update, perhaps, on the investigation to the use of top national security officials' discussions of the Yemen strikes on the Signal app. What's the latest?
So the latest development in this ongoing saga is that the Pentagon's Inspector General is going to investigate. And so last week we saw the top Republican and top Democrat on the Senate Armed Services Committee call for an investigation, specifically from the acting Inspector General. And so in response to that request, the acting Inspector General notified both Hegseth and members of Congress earlier today that they will in fact be investigating Secretary Hegseth's use. And as a reminder, several senior U.S. officials were discussing a potential military operation against the Houthis in Yemen on Signal, which is an end-to-end encrypted app, but is still commercially available and not permitted for use of classified information. Secretary Hegseth maintains that he didn't share quote-unquote war plans and that he didn't disclose classified information. Mm-hmm. However, we know from actually seeing the contents of that group chat that he did discuss things like what weapon systems would be involved, including F-18s as well as MQ-9 Reaper drones. He talked about when the bombing campaign would begin exactly. And so these are all operational details that are classified that he does have the ability to declassify and then share. But the question is, did he? And even if he did, there still would be questions about the intelligence or the reasoning behind declassifying this type of operational information as it's about to happen and then disseminating it on such a platform.
There have been confirmation hearings in the Senate for President Trump's nominee to be chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff. What did we learn?
So the person the president nominated is Lieutenant General Dan Caine. And so he even acknowledged that he's an unconventional pick for the position. And the reason he's unconventional is he doesn't literally meet the legal requirements for the role. The president has to sign a waiver that makes him eligible because he hasn't held any of the specific positions that are required by law for someone to have held before becoming the chairman of the Joint Chiefs. And so those positions include being a member of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, which are the heads of the military branches, mm-hmm. Being a combatant commander. And so even though he hasn't held those top positions, he still was in the Air Force for over 30 years. And one interesting aspect of his confirmation hearing is over the last several years, President Trump has actually replayed or retold a story involving his now pick to be the chairman. And in this story, the president and him are talking about during his first term the strategy of how to defeat ISIS. And the Lieutenant General Caine says it can be done a lot faster if you reduce some of the restrictions on us. And then after he says this, according to President Trump's retelling, he takes a MAGA hat and puts it on. Mm-hmm. Now, we know the president's propensity for embellishment during his storytelling, but we also know that if this were to have happened, as the president has described on several occasions, it would or could be a serious ethics violation for a uniformed military officer, because they are specifically forbidden from donning any sort of political apparel. And so he was asked point blank very early in the hearing if that story was accurate, and he said it wasn't.
So there's been a tragedy involving American servicemen in Lithuania. Walk us through what happened.
Early last week, 4 service members, as you said, embarked on a training mission in an M88 Herculean armored truck. And so they got essentially bogged down in a swamp, and it took several days for their vehicle to be found, and it had effectively sunk into a muddy bog. And so it took hundreds of U.S., Lithuanian, and Polish troops to find the vehicle and then pull it out of the muck where it was. And tragically, the 4 service members who were in that did not make it. And so their bodies are still in Lithuania, and they will be coming back to the U.S. and arriving at Dover in the near future.
Terrible news. Thank you, Mike. You can read Mike and the rest of our national security team's coverage at washingtonexaminer.com.